There, Susanna, I'm really happy to see you here in Ukraine. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for your work in the field of children protection. And today I would like to talk with you a little bit more about children's sexual online abuse. Could you please tell us more about grooming and what risks for children these crimes is, and more about these cases?
Yes. So grooming is when an adult contacts a child via the internet for sexual purposes. Now, the sexual purpose bit might not always be obvious and direct. Traditionally, grooming is understood as the child maybe not understanding that they're being prepared for a sexual situation. However, there are many different types of grooming. So nowadays, there's also very direct, fast, and violent grooming, where the first contact might be very openly sexual. And when it comes to grooming, many people want to believe in the myth that the adult online is always pretending to be younger, to be a child, so that the child is tricked into a conversation with someone their own age. But the fact is that very often, when it comes to grooming, the adult is open about being an adult. If it's a 53-year-old, he'll say he's 53. If it's a 25-year-old, say he's 25. So the children know that they're being contacted by someone who's older. So that's also important to understand.
But could you please tell us more about why children contact with adults? Because usually as parents, we teach our children, don't talk with strangers, don't go somewhere with strangers. But more and more often in Ukraine, we see situation when children talk online with adults, and sometimes they even agree to meet with them offline. And after this, we have different kind of sexual abuse of children or even rape. So could you please give more information about this type?
Well, I think all parents know that children don't always do what they're told. And it's everything from children making mistakes to children knowingly not doing what they're told. When it comes to situations of grooming, there are many different reasons. Children are curious, they're exploring the internet, they're exploring themselves, their own identities. It can be exciting and fascinating that someone contacted you, someone older. Children all over the world, I usually emphasize, are very age segregated. Their whole world consists of other people their own age, and to be contacted by someone who's older can be exciting. Some children, and with children I mean under 18, are sexually curious and they want to explore their sexuality, but they should be allowed to do so in a safe way. Some children are frightened when they're contacted, but they think that they can handle it, so they might reply, and things, even by replying, things might escalate. And I think most importantly, children, they know that they shouldn't talk to strangers. They know that the moment they do, in a way they've done something wrong vis-a-vis their parents. They feel that. And the abusers know this, and that's what they're using against the children.
Could you please tell a little bit more about sexting? Because we started to talk about sharing private images between children and adult, but also we face a situation when children, teens for example, share their nude photos with each other. How often do you see the situation in Sweden, and what do you think why children do this?
Well, we see it very often. It's very common, and you have the full range of people doing so voluntarily, happily, to people, children feeling that they have to because of peer pressure, because of pressure within the relationship, to where children are forced to do so by their partner, for example, or maybe they sent one thing and that turned into what we call sextortion, someone using that image against them and asking for more images. And why they do that? It's affirmation, it can be positive, it can be an exploration of their sexual identity, But it can also, and it can be curiosity, but it can also be coerced. It can be that you feel that everyone is doing it, I have to do it, etc. And it's very problematic because the children, sometimes they realize it, sometimes they don't, but the repercussions can be quite awful because it's there online and it's also sometimes spread in other places.
What do you think the main recommendation for parents, what they have to do to protect their children from sexual online abuse?
Imagine that it's your child, because most parents just understandably want to say, this could never happen to my child. I'm the best parent and my child is the best child and this would never happen. And you have to accept the risk that it could be your child. Because if you accept that, then you're ready to have these uncomfortable, difficult conversations with your child, not only about the risks and the precautions and what you should not do, but rather emphasize what should the child do. And the most important thing, because children will make mistakes, it's to emphasize that no matter what happens, even if the child thinks that they did something wrong, even if someone tells the child that they did something wrong, that they can always tell their parents. And the parents will have to promise, even if they're lying, they have to promise not to panic. And they have to promise that, and you have to have this conversation many times. You really have to make your child say, please stop talking about it, and emphasize that you love them, that you will protect them, that no matter what they did, you won't blame them. Because that's the best way to protect them, really, to ensure that they are not afraid to tell their parents when something happens that they cannot handle.
And also we understand that social media really changed the childhood of children. And could you please tell us about how social media changed crimes, especially sexual abuse of children, and what social media is the most dangerous for children, where maybe abusers contact them more often with children?
Well, let me start with the last question. And I don't mean to be alarmist, but any social media that allows communication between two people will be a platform for abusers. Because wherever the children are, the abusers will also be. So it doesn't matter, it's changing very quickly which messenger apps and which platforms are the most popular, but it doesn't matter. If a child can be contacted by someone, that's where the abuse might happen. And how it's changed, it has made it, we think internet is amazing and it's fantastic and it's opening the world to children as well. We also have to recognize that it is allowing abusers direct contact with children in a very fast way. So in Sweden, we've had cases where one abuser has been able to sexually abuse online over 100 children. Now, that would be very difficult to do offline. That would have been very difficult before the internet. And what we see is obviously that they cast a very wide net. So they copy-paste the same messages and they just send it to as many children as possible. So that way, and I want to emphasize that when we look at the chats of these crimes, we do see a lot of conversations where children, they said the right thing. They said, no, stop, this is not okay, I'm telling my parents, I'm calling the police. And that's fantastic. But the abusers are hiding behind anonymity, so they can just ignore those children and they move on. So you can see 1,000 children do the right thing, but you'll still have 100 children that didn't know what to do, or for various reasons, for other reasons, started a conversation and who were then sexually abused.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, what kind of children are the most vulnerable online? Because I'm sorry, I just think that all children is really vulnerable online.
They are. On the one hand, there is some research showing that inevitably children who are more vulnerable offline will also be more vulnerable online. So if you're having a difficult family situation, etc., etc., that will translate into the online world as well. But we're also seeing a lot of children being sexually abused with very different backgrounds, from loving, caring families, both parents at home, well-educated, everything is fine, and the child is sexually abused online. So in a way, everyone has to remember that it could be their child, and you need to have these conversations.
Thank you so much. It was a really interesting conversation, and I'm really sorry that we don't have hours of conversation. But thank you so much, and really nice to see you here. Thank you.
Thank you.